everything that I went through, Rashad, that whole off season, and then through the preseason, and then through playing, and being benched, and everything I went through during the course of that season. Bill Parcells ruined my consecutive start. I had a $250,000 incentive that I missed. I had a $500,000 incentive that I missed. Uh, that I could have made money to take care of me and my family. And now I get a chance. I'm going to get an opportunity at another championship ring. It's one thing to win one Super Bowl, but then you get a chance to win two, and then you win two. So I saw like a life fulfilled in football, and it just so happened that it happened right before my eyes. And today is one of the things that I cherish the most. Especially when I look at these trophies to my right. I mean, you can't see them; they're in a case here, but let me see. Maybe you can. If I turn this, you might see my trophies. You see that case?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Can you see that case?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. So those trophies are like, every time I look at those trophies, I think about everything we just talked about.
Okay, so now you win that game. You play the Buffalo Bills. They beat Raiders at the time 51-3. You're underdogs. Talk about leading up to that Super Bowl against the high flying Bills, and you win 2019. But just talk about leading up to that game, all this hype about Buffalo, rightfully so. But you guys were battle tested. Buffalo, this is their first time in the Super Bowl, so it's like everybody talking about them, but you guys knew what it took to win. But just talk about the leading up to that game, as far as the hype.
I think the hype for us was when we flew into Tampa that night. We got in around, I want to say 7:30, 8 o'clock. And when we flew in, all the guys wanted to find a place to go to maybe have a drink, a cocktail, to celebrate our win in San Francisco. We walk in the bar, and a lot of the Buffalo guys were there already. And they were a little bit disrespectful.
Oh.
Because, you got to keep in mind now, they scored 83 points in 2 weeks and only gave up something like 7 to 12 points in the course of playing the game. So they were pretty cocky as a football team. They beat the Raiders, some ridiculous score. And I think before that, they beat somebody else, a ridiculous score. So I think they scored, like I said, 81 to 83 points in 2 weeks. And they had only given up like 14, 15 points in 2 weeks. So we kind of knew what their mindset was going to be. All week long, we kept saying to ourselves, we're not going to let them beat us with the deep ball. We're not going to let them beat us with the deep ball. If they beat us, Thurman Thomas is going to have 300 yards rushing, but they're not going to beat us with the deep ball. And we wanted to take away the wide receivers in the game. If you go back and look at the game, that's why we hit the wide receivers, whether they caught the ball or not. We wanted them to be wiping grass stains off their ass and worrying about where they're going to get hit from versus being able to catch passes. Granted, Thurman Thomas had 180 yards, but they had the football for 19 minutes. So did they score touchdowns, more touchdowns than they had yardage? No. They had more yardage than they scored touchdowns. We both know yardage doesn't win games. Points do.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the takeaway from a game like that. I think the brilliancy behind it came from Bill Belichick, because he said to us as a team, we're going to play 3 down linemen, we're going to play 5 defensive backs and 4 linebackers. And 3 linebackers, I mean. We're going to play a 5-3-3 defensive scheme, and sometime we're going to play a 4-4-3 defensive scheme, but we're going to disguise it so much that they're not going to know who's in the game. And he says we're going to play 2. We're going to play Leonard at this end, play Lawrence at this end, and we're going to play Eric Howard at nose tackle. And our 3 guys are going to play better than their 5 guys. And that's kind of what happened.
Yep. And the thing about that game is that, yeah, before we get to that, against the Dogs, they put up like 44 points. They put up 51 points during that playoff because they scored 44 against the Dolphins. So they put up like 95 points. So
Yes.
yeah.
It was a ridiculous. It was a ridiculous score, man.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing about that Super Bowl with the Bills and Giants that the third down conversions and the one that stands out obviously is third down and 13. Mark Ingram missing out, making those guys miss. The Buffalo players miss. My defense is making all these moves and spinning around and reaching out. This third down conversion, talk about that because that was huge. To convert
Mark Ingram's play on third down and that particular play was indicative of our season. That play spoke about our season. We were a team of destiny. We were a team that believed in destiny and believed in faith. And you know, whether we were holding hands and while Matt Barr's kicking a field goal in San Francisco, to getting on one knee and holding hands as their field goal kicker kicks the last kick in that game, which happened to go 9 feet to the right. That team, that football play Mark Ingram made was indicative of the destiny of that 1990 New York Football Giants football team.
Yeah, Otis Anderson won MVP. Definitely up in age at that time. As far as his running back, he won the MVP. That was just a one for Super Bowl because there was no turnovers. It was trips, hard hitting, and this came down to a field goal. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on Scott Norwood to try to make that field goal. It's great that he missed it, but that was just a lot of pressure. So that's just second Super Bowl with that nucleus. Unfortunately, Phil Simms got hurt against Buffalo. Let's talk about that with Hostetler. Can't forget him because he was like a change of pace, with the bootlegs they used to run, more athletic. Let's talk about his contribution to that Super Bowl run because that was very important too.
Well, that was the beauty of it. That was the beauty of it when Sims got knocked out of the game and got knocked out of the season against the Bills. Um, we knew that Jeff would be a little bit more of an asset to us. We knew that he was more mobile, that he had the ability to run with the ball, make plays with his feet, and be a pain in the ass for another defense. Something else that we figured we had in our favor was our cornerbacks and our safeties. Our cornerbacks and our safeties played so well that year because we had a veteran in the secondary, two veterans, Dave Durrison and Everson Walls, that could come in and provide some leadership back there and give the young guys, Myron Guyton, Greg Jackson, Mark Collins, Perry Williams, give those guys the support they need to really make plays and be able to rotate guys in the game, Rashad. Keeping fresh bodies and fresh legs and fresh eyes in the game. So I think that was good for our football team. And it showed up a lot. It showed up a lot on film and it showed up in our play as a football team.
Okay, so that was the last game, unfortunately, for obviously like back to the Buffalo Bills to going to reach. Yeah, they put up 44 points, and they put up 51 points against 51 points against the Raiders. They put up 95 points. You held them to 19 points. So that's the last game, unfortunately, for Bill Parcells. Were you surprised that he retired at that time to go into broadcasting? I think, right?
Yeah, he went to broadcasting. Was I surprised? Yes.
Okay.
I was even more surprised that Bill Belichick didn't get the appointment
Mm-hmm.
to become the head football coach.
Yeah, should have done that.
Yeah, he should have become the head coach. So that was more surprising than Bill Parcells not getting the job.
Okay, so Ray Hanley becomes the coach, and obviously that was a disaster. Things didn't work out. That you had 2 more years with the Giants. But let's talk about those 2 years. Just bad. We didn't go to the playoffs the next 2 years. Let's talk about that tenure of Ray Hanley. Those 2 years.
Well, I could tell you when Ray took the job, in '91. Remember, I was in Bill Parcells' doghouse in 1990. So, um, '91, I wanted to come back with a vengeance, and I wanted to prove to the football world that I still had the ability to play at a high level. And I think at that time I had close to 60 quarterback sacks underneath me, a little more than 60. So it was important to me to come back with a vengeance. Um, I was MVP of the team in 1991. I was Defensive Player of the Year of the team in 1991. I had 11 and a half sacks. I make my third Pro Bowl as an alternate, and um, and I'm on the defense with Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks, Pepper Johnson, Gary Reasons, Eric Howard, Eric Dorsey, John Washington. It's a pretty good football players, and I was hoping for that team to be able to challenge for a championship more than me achieving my individual goals. But my individual goals were just as important to me as our team goals because I wanted to prove to myself and to the football world that I still could play the game, Rashad, at a high level.
Okay, so unfortunately things didn't work out 91, 92. And again, it was like a change of guard. That division still was tough. The Cowboys was coming on strong. They became a dynasty, one winning 3 out of 4. So now 92 was your last year. You end up with the Jets. What went wrong? Obviously, it's a business. Obviously, you got move, player movement happens, and you go to the Jets. PNC took over in '93. We'll talk about what made the Jets be the best team to play for at that time.
Well, at the time that I made the decision to lead the Giants, um, it was a business. It was a business decision.
Yeah.
I got tired of fighting the Giants for money,
Mm.
and I felt that free agency was designed to help players make choices and make decisions and have options available to them that coaches always had. And I had never had that option. The ability to pick and choose where I wanted to play, for what dollar amount, and for what team. So I turned down a couple of offers to play for other teams, and I felt that if I moved and I just moved from one locker room to another, I'm still in the area. I'll make more money. I'll do well. There's a great defensive coordinator in a young Pete Carroll that's running the defense for the Jets. They have a young head coach who was a great mind on offense, who coached Boomer Esiason and a number of players before, and now he and Boomer Esiason are going to get back together again. So I felt like we could have been the 1989 Cincinnati Bengals. And that team ended up playing the 49ers in the Super Bowl. I felt that my Jet team could have been that. It was me, Boomer, and Ronnie Lott.
Yeah.
Plugged into a good nucleus of young players who really were hungry to win. And up until I broke my forearm, we were 8-3. We were headed to the playoffs. That team was going to make the playoffs. I think after I cracked my forearm,
he must have closed it.
Went downhill. And if there's any one regret, it would be that I really regret getting injured.
Yeah.
Because I really want to be able to say I won a third Super Bowl for a guy like Leon Hess.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so that was your last season with them, the Jets. The Redskins, man, you played the Washington Redskins. That was interesting.
Oh, that was interesting. That was all.
What was that, man?
That was interesting, man. I mean, it was almost over for me. I still had a lot of football left in me, Rashad, but I just was getting tired, man.
Yeah.
I did everything I wanted to do. I made All-Pro several times, been Defensive Lineman of the Year a couple of times, been MVP of the Giants a couple of times. Played with some great Giant football teams, played with some great players. The 86 team of the the Giants, the closest group of guys I've ever met in my life. That's a band of brothers, and we will be brothers forever until I'm dead.
Yeah.
So I feel the same way about the 1990 group because some of those guys overlap. All I can say is, when I look back on my career, all of it was good. I had a great time. Did I quit too early? Yes, but I think I lost something. I lost an edge when I started to see the politics of pro football, and it happened to me in Washington D.C. because of a young player who was drafted in the first round a couple of years before me, and I wasn't the draft pick. I was the guy that came from somewhere else, and so they had a decision to make. Do we let the old man go and keep the young guy, even though the old man plays better than the young guy? And what will happen to our fans if we keep the old guy and not keep the young guy? So that was a turnoff to me in the end. But it was a great time. I had a great time.
Okay, so let's get into some stories because when you called me last month, going
Yeah.
to tell it, man. He said that he used to go to Patterson, New Jersey, and get his hair done at the Mitchell's.
Yeah, man.
Talk about that,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, man. We used to go. We used to frequent. We used to frequent Mitchell's unisex salon on Market Street over in Patterson, right by the what is that? The Alabama Projects.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we used to frequent that quite often, and of course, yours truly was